Well, hello, that's me again, and the events of the last few days warrant me to have a high operational tempo in this particular case regarding the failed, which are not really failed, negotiations between Russia and NATO in Geneva and within the framework of a Russia-NATO Council. And the reason they are not failed because it was expected that they will fail, and their purpose on Russia's part for these tasks was to really make an imprint and a record for the future framework. And future framework, or the phase two of what follows this whole failure and inability of US and Western so-called diplomacy, or whatever passes for it, is the fact that now the people will talk in the not just broadsides. Russia already started to talk broadsides once she issued this ultimatum, but once they will start in the particulars. And Sergei Lavrov, foreign minister of Russia today, was on record stating that yes, military technical measures will be implemented, and he said Russia always reacts on threats, and she will react accordingly, and that will be by creating of the counter threats. And that's what I wanted to tell or to talk about today, because you're not going to be seeing my ugly face for much longer today in this particular case, because I'm going to be presenting some pictures. Those pictures will be somewhat how to put it politely, I would say it's introductory level of the spatial and time awareness. And because internet, and especially YouTube, is infested with all those so-called military experts, quote unquote, and there are very many fanboys, both on both sides, from United States and West, from Russia, you know, all those guys who post a number of pictures and videos of weapon system blowing, pardon my French, shit up, and then just basically, again, pardon my French, masturbating to all those pictures and saying, oh, we're gonna attack you with 100 lambs, and then some Russian fanboy comes up, oh, we're gonna defend it with 150, you know, air defense missiles, and, you know, and so off it goes, and all those military experts show all those pictures and how great those, you know, military people and military technology looks like. And of course, this is not serious. It's a complete crap. I mean, and this is for the people who read too much of late Tom Clancy, which was one of the worst favors which could have been done to people who really wanted to know what real war is and really grasp the consequences of this. So in this particular case, I will start giving what actually is always the final result of any serious professional officer. I'm talking specifically officer, because this is the different level, it's a command level, and great officer, apart from being necessarily well-versed in mathematics and physics and engineering, is always the final destination, so to speak, for the officer is to develop a great ability to see the time-spatial picture of the battle. It develops itself from studying seriously tactics, not the way it is presented in the, again, on YouTube by fanboys who probably spend 1 year in the armed forces, or, you know, no, the real tactics and its next level, so to speak, operational art, which talks about the serious units and formations already operating as the single organism dedicated to the single political objective or military objective on the theater of operations. It is the ability to see the battle. Literally, like this famous by now presentation in the Star Wars when they were showing how to attack the Death Star, and it was kind of modeled with the attack of the rebels or whatever against the Empire. So something like that. It doesn't mean that you have to have the full picture in your head, but you have to have enough abstract images there to help you to develop what matters most. It is, of course, decision. commanding decision on either use of weaponry or retreating or redeployment or what have you, it is very complex, it is very serious, and it requires a lot of knowledge. And of course, I mean, classic of them is OODA loop, but Colonel Boyd, which is observe, orient, decide, and act. It seems easy, but in reality it's not, because especially first two OO, observe and orient, are really hard part, and it involves so much in it, from developing of the information and becoming first situationally aware and then tactically aware, that I will start introducing some basic things which will be explaining why Russia takes this position and why I am on the record for the last few years, especially since 2018, that the United States lost the conventional arms race. I'm not talking about nuclear arms race, which United States most likely also lost, but at least the United States has a massive nuclear arsenal. And we will start talking about those things, how professionals talk. I will try to simplify them as much as I can, because obviously you do not need to sit here and study the whole course of the theory of operations or Gaussian distributions and things of this nature, you know, and it's all will come up at some point of time. But today I just want to give some geometric, I mean spatial that is, and time representation of what had happened in the last, I would say, 10 years, but especially now, and especially now that the 3M22 Zirkon, with the range, which is officially confirmed, of 1,000 kilometers and Mach 9 speed, is officially adopted for the service, and that changes everything, and that changes also the strategic situation on the number of theaters of operations. First, by dramatically limiting operations of the US Navy in case of serious war. Nobody wants this war. And in the end, when you read those Admiral Stavridis or whatever, Ben Hodges and all those American generals and admirals talking about, oh, we'll do this and do that. No, I mean, come on, people. You are freaking highest level officers. You went through the either U.S. Army or U.S. Navy War College. You studied things. You studied shit. I mean, come on. Just get the goddamn pen and calculator and look at this, basically, the correlation of the forces, and that's why they're actually being so desperate and sometimes hysterical, pretending that something can happen. Nothing can happen. And this is about, in the end, not only just NATO expansion, which is the main focus of Russia's ultimatum, but the foundation of this, so to speak, concern is, of course, one of the foundations is Ukraine. And let's face it, and I am on record, I'm speaking about this constantly, Russia can break Ukraine apart really fast and with very little effort. So in this particular case, I will start with some pictures and I will be commenting on them. You can keep them, you know, with my comments on the screen of your computer or whatever, and you will see yourself what I'm talking about, and we'll take it from there. So, okay, let's start. What you see here, and it was done to the best of my abilities, and I tried to preserve the scale as much as I could, is the main force of the America's foreign policy and the foundation of its military might, which is actually carrier battle group. In the right you can see the CVN, which is carrier itself, and the way it is surrounded by the carrier battle group, which this picture and this template have been taken from about 1980s, early 1990s. Since then, United States completely got rid of the older type of frigates and destroyers, and nowadays in the immediate ship escort is usually one Ticonderoga class Aegis-equipped cruiser and couple of the Arleigh Burke class Flight 2, probably Flight 3 coming soon, destroyers, whose main task is to provide the coverage, air defense coverage for the CVN, which is the aircraft carrier. And of course you have in the remote anti-submarine zone, you have both patrols by 1 or 2 nuclear-powered hunter-killer, so to speak, submarines, which is usually either later Los Angeles class or Virginia class, maybe sometimes Seawolf class. And of course, as you can see yourself, somewhere at around 150 to 200 nautical miles of CVN itself, you have the both patrols by the early warning aircraft, and you have, of course, the strike or attack or interceptor aircraft, which are usually Hornet, F-18 Hornets, who stay on station within like 150, 100, 200 miles, and they can stand on this distance on station, so to speak, for a couple of hours, probably 3, depending on the fuel. And after that, they have to return back to the carrier. And of course, the Hawkeye, the early warning aircraft, they can barrage for a longer time. And their task, of course, is to provide the early warning and the radar picture for the whole situation on the surface of the sea. Plus you have obviously sonar on the ships or the escort ships engaged pretty much constantly. Plus you have the helicopters, multi-purpose helicopters, which are also reconfigured for anti-submarine warfare purpose, which do conduct, if necessary, the search, detection, and if, God forbids, of course, comes down to it, the elimination of the submarines of the enemy. So this is how it looks like. We're looking at the basically a rectangle of about probably 250 nautical miles, which moves, as you can see yourself, plus minus in this order. Sometimes it doesn't move, but that's pretty much what you have. And of course, if you need to conduct the strike mission, you launch a bunch of the attack aircraft, same F-18s, they fly, they get refueled, and of course, in this case, their range extends quite significantly. They fly, bomb the third world shithole into the submission, and return back. That's how it all works. Plus, of course, you have the Tomahawk or Tomahawk land attack missiles, which are loaded in the Mk-41 vertical launch systems on the escort ships, and they also can strike at a depth of about 2,000 kilometers. This is your foundation of the American naval and military power, and the way it was done to impress the world and project America's power all over the world. Here, as you can see yourself, study it closer and you will see everything you need to see here. That means a lack of any commitment. What you see is how the same carrier battle group looks like for either surface combatant, surface ship, or nuclear, or in this case diesel-powered submarine, armed with the missiles of the class of P-800 Onyx, which have the combat range of 800 kilometers, or in this case, whatever you have, either the newer versions of 3 M54 caliber missile, or of course Zirkon, but again, Zirkon's range is officially 1,000 kilometers, so you have to expand this red circumference significantly. And in this particular case, as you can see yourself, this whole area of the circle, you can always calculate pi r squared. We were looking at about 2 million square kilometers roughly, which is about the size of the Greenland. And this is the area which, in this particular case, a carrier battle group must cover in terms of search and detection of the enemy targets to avoid the launch of the salvo. Nobody attacks, obviously, targets of this nature, like CBG, with a single or couple missiles. We're looking at the massive salvos, or maybe the pulses of salvos, 3 or 4 pulses, each of them having between 8 and 16 cruise missiles, whose main task is to basically obliterate the whole CBG, especially disable the carrier itself. And as you can see yourself, once you have the area, which is 2 million square kilometers, you got a problem. The reason you got a problem, because everything in the warfare, from land warfare to naval warfare to air warfare, is built fundamentally around the search. You need to find the target. Now, it's easier done on land because many land targets are fixed, but when you're looking at the air warfare or naval warfare, all those circles, they move. And it's not just CBG that moves. Obviously, attackers who follow this CBG, they also move. And in this case, the mechanic becomes an extremely complex issue, mechanic of this battle, so to speak, which is still very primitive here. We're not talking about the probabilities and how the searches, for example, like random search, are conducted here. But this is the picture of the basically CBG from the point of view of the attacker. Now, you may ask me, but what about targeting? Well, targeting in the modern times is not that difficult, even under conditions when let's say, CBG tries to do what you have to do during the war, MCON, emission control. In this particular case, finding such a large target using the space-based means of the detection, or ISR, intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance, and using other signal collection is good enough for providing a reliable position of the group, and that will allow to develop the firing solution for sinking it. And modern combat information control systems, of course, are designed such a way that you can easily calculate the salvo and launch it. Now imagine what happens when you have the surface combatant with Zirkon on board. What you see here is a classic basic salvo equation with delta B if we assume the carrier battle group or any kind of the surface group being the US Navy's group, and we'll call it the force B. You will see how the reduction delta B is basically change in the force will happen, granted that B1 in this particular case is the staying power of the US group. In this particular case, if you take the aircraft carrier, how many missiles it will take to sink or kill it, it depends. I will omit here the calculations, which are very complex. And of course, B3 is the ability of the group to shoot well-aimed missiles, which they can shoot the missiles of the group A, which is the enemy, and alpha is A is the number of the ships or carriers of the missiles, and alpha are the number of the missiles, well-aimed missiles, which actually can launch and approach the force B. As you can see yourself, fairly straightforward. But here's the funny thing. Here, I will explain it in a second. In case of Zirkon 3M22, with its Mach 9 velocity, which makes the salvo from about 800 kilometers well, basically divide 800 kilometers by about 3 kilometers per second, and you get yourself about what, and I'm calculating in my head, something like 270 seconds. So we're looking at some, what, 5.5 minutes. That's what it takes the missile to reach the target. You completely remove the issue of the well-aimed missiles of the CBG because there is no way anything can intercept Zirkon. And suddenly, what you see, the formula is reduced to this. It's just merely how many missiles actually will hit. For example, the B-1, the staying power of some ship like Arleigh class destroyer, it means the number of the missiles it can take without being sunk. For case of Zirkon, hypersonic missile will be 1. It will take 1 missile to completely destroy the ship. As a result, everything hinges merely on the capability of the hypersonic weapon to be launched, to be basically in order, and to hit the target. So in this particular case, it's merely alpha times A. A, the number of the forces or carriers in the force A in the enemy force, and alpha, the number of missiles they carry. If you say have 2 ships carrying, let's say, 8 Zircons each, if you have the 16 missile launch of Zirkon, you have 2 times 8 equals 16. There you go. So in this case, I would suggest anybody seeing and watching this video to get acquainted with these basic salvo equations, the salvo model developed by late genius of the naval thinker Captain Wayne Hughes. And this is my first experience with trying to develop and deliver more complex topics, especially in operations. I didn't even go into the search issues today. But please leave your opinions and tell me what could be improved, because I'm also only learning now how to operate this whole video software. But in general, this is my first attempt, so don't be too judgmental. And as always, support me on Patreon and subscribe, and I will be talking to you later in development of this topic. So my best wishes to you guys, and learn basic math. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.